So is the iPhone the king in 2024? Well, according to Counterpoint Research, you can see that the top selling phone globally just in 2023 was the Apple iPhone 14. Yes, the 14, which might seem like a little bit of a boring option if you're a tech enthusiast. But even at the number 2 option is the 14 Pro Max. At this point, these are probably getting outsold by the 15 models. But you see, even at the end of 2023, launching the 15 series, the 15, you see right there, the 15 Pro and the Pro Max, the one you're seeing right here, all in the top selling phones globally. So if we want to talk about the best selling phones worldwide, iPhone is still the king. I mean, as a matter of fact, the first 7 spots are taken up by the iPhone, and then only a couple really low end Samsung phones. You would think the more premium Samsung phones would be in there, but that's not the case. It's actually some more lower end Samsung options, with Apple taking multiple top spots as the best selling worldwide. So in terms of sales, Apple is still a boss in this area. So are the iPhone experiences the most premium in terms of the feel, the actual design, and the build? Well, I would argue, yes, they are definitely up there with some of the best feeling phones, best design phones in the world today. Especially the current iPhone 15s, they've gotten lighter, they're super ergonomic. The curved edges feel like they were just perfectly designed to fit in your palm. They're not sharp at the corners. You can tell that these phones are designed for humans, definitely. Especially the smaller ones, they feel more compact, more usable. The larger phones have that same trait, they have the same design, but they feel a little bit unwieldy sometimes for some people, if you will. But even if you have a large hand, then the iPhone 15 Plus is going to feel very nice in the hand for you. So in terms of design, I definitely feel like they're definitely one of the kings for sure, if not the king, in terms of the overall flat feel, the overall, curved edges. If you take a look at some of the current best Samsung phones out there, like the Galaxy S24 Plus, the regular Galaxy S24, they kind of employ the same exact shape. Also, if you look at like the Pixel line, the Pixel 8 line, they also employ a similar shape and feel after Apple had launched these devices and prior devices. So you can tell this just works. And in terms of design, definitely still, and feel, definitely still a king here in 2024. So in terms of the display, is the iPhone still the king? And I would say there are multiple kings in display. Samsung makes the iPhone display. So if I say Apple has a king display, you want to say, well, no, that's Samsung. Samsung makes this display. Keep that in mind. So yeah, I would say they definitely have a king level display right here for sure. You can call them a king in this area. Here's why I think that here in 2024. Number one, they have great color accuracy and good saturation, but not overly saturated. The way they tuned this was you have really nice color, but it's not like over the top. It doesn't look like weirdly overly saturated. It doesn't look too dull or like weirdly, bland. It just looks good. So overall, and it's been that way since like a while, but they've just been making it a little bit more accurate over the years, giving you a really nice True Tone mode, which some people think is the best, one of the best features of iPhone. And it kind of is. A lot of Android manufacturers made features that kind of copy that feature. Also, it does have a really decent sharpness level as well. Across the entire iPhone 15 line, it's basically the same pixels per inch. It's over 450. And so it's really, really good without, at this point, if you go higher than what the iPhone offers, which a lot of phones do, there's diminishing returns. Now, the anti-glare on the S24 Ultra is not available on these phones, so that is a step forward. And the dynamic is aesthetically not everyone's favorite, so I'm not saying that, but from the sheer quality standpoint, accuracy, saturation, and that doesn't matter if you're on the 15 Pro Max, you're on the regular 15, the 15 Plus, They all kind of have that same feel, but if you want extra brightness, you got to go to the Pros. And if you want those super smooth refreshes, you have to go to the Pros. So is the iPhone the king in software? And I would say for most people, yeah. And the reason why is simple to use. And a lot of people say, what are people talking about simple to use when they don't have back gestures on both sides? Some people don't agree with this, but let's take a look at this. All right. You see the screen here, grid of icons. You swipe to the left. There's a automatically organized app library. You don't even have to think about organizing it. Apple does it for you. That is super simple. Tap right here. You have a list of icons. Super simple. You swipe from the right. There's your toggle for Control Center. Super simple. Yes, some actions are 1-2 steps, like go to the settings menu and you got to go to Control Center to add stuff. But once again, in an easy list format, very simple. Also, Face ID, you just look at the phone and you swipe. Pretty much anybody can get this. This is super simple. There's no complexity. There's nothing really here that's super complex. You can dive deep if you want to get complex, but there's a lot of videos for that. But for the average person, most people can get by with an iPhone just fine and use it. Also, they have lock-in effects of iMessage and FaceTime. If you're into, socializing on iMessage, that's a big deal. If you're using WhatsApp, you're probably not an iPhone fan, but if you're using iMessage, definitely a big deal. Also, FaceTime is a big deal as well as a lock-in. Also, we do have ourselves, AirPods and MacBooks and iPads, and all of those seem to work very well. The software update also comes in far more frequently and consistently across iPhone devices versus some other products out there. Like they come at the same time on iPhone. So yeah, the software to me, I think is still a king in 2024, even if it's kind of boring and played out and looks the same. It's been looking for years and years. It's still tough to beat. Super smooth, super refined. While buggy at times, they usually get an update out to fix that pretty quickly. So is the iPhone the king in performance in 2024? Well, yes, especially if you have a 15 Pro or Pro Max, A17 Pro chipsets, some of the best benchmarks in the business. And if you want to play console level games, you can go ahead and do that. You have the best display performance as well when you have a ProMotion because it's just super smooth day to day. And there's a lot of 120 hertz Android phones that run at 120 hertz similarly. But then when you get to the animations and touch response, you realize Apple's playing at the king level. For sure, it's at the top of the game. So especially on the Pros. I don't really feel that way about the 60 hertz iPhones, but performance-wise, even with 60 hertz, they're still very flawless in terms of application performance and stuff like that. It's just for that next level, especially on the Pros, we still have some kings in performance here for sure. What about the cameras? Are they the king of the cameras? Well, yes and no. They're not the king in zoom. They're not the king in, AI photography and all of that. But I think they're the king for the consumer, for what people actually use. And I know that could sound like a very oversimplification. You could say, well, Pixel does that too. Yes, they do. But I just think the video, the photo, they have what people need. I do think they can get a little bit annoying how they don't have the settings right here. You got to go in the settings to change things. But I don't think most people are changing much of anything because the layout is super easy and simple. Samsung is great for people who want extra features and want to dive into their camera more. And Pixel is great for people who like what they do with the post-processing. It can be even better than iPhone and skin tones a lot of people photos. Overall, Apple's setup is a pretty easy and approachable camera setup that I think most people get by with just good. And I think the 15 and 15 Plus really illustrate this example a little bit better because you can see while they don't have a triple camera, they let you crop in and they go 10 times. Now, this is kind of like, you could be like, well, that's nothing. We've been having that zoom for a while. But when you really think about the person who's buying a 15 and 15 Plus, that is enough zoom for them, mostly. It's probably going to be more than enough. A lot of people get by with the 13 just fine, and those can only zoom like 5 times. So having 10 times is just an added bonus. Also, you can see, even though it's a dual camera, the cameras you do get look freaking phenomenal. Also, the ultra wides, zooming through the lenses is buttery smooth, and the video quality is near like camcorder level. It's just really good. So overall, the iPhone is definitely a king in the camera department. While there are phones that are having features to better, and I do think some Android phones just destroy the iPhones in certain areas. They're definitely kings in the camera department. That's why they still sell well. I mean, I don't think the iPhones would sell that good if they had horrible cameras. It's one of the top things, and in social media, they're really good as well. Now, here's another draw to the iPhone experience, and that is the battery life. The battery life is really good, especially on the Max and the Plus. These two are good, but these are really good on the big phones. And where they're really good is in the standby. When you just have it in your pocket, they don't drain that much battery. When you're using it, even heavy, they don't drain that much battery. Camera can drain some of them. And we had some experiences with the 14 Pro and Pro Max that were not so good. But the actual battery life under usage day to day, if you charge it up, this thing lasts and lasts and lasts. And it's definitely one of the reasons why I think Apple definitely still does really well. This software being lighter than most, not over the top with iOS, really allows this thing to just go the distance on battery. And it's one of the strong suits of the iPhone. There are phones like the OnePlus 12 that have bigger batteries and they last longer in some situations. Some of the Samsung phones can too at these points. So they're not like the only king out there anymore. But they still have two great options for top level battery in the 15 Plus and the 15 Pro Max. And for used options, the 14 Plus and the 13 Pro Max. They have some kings out there in the battery. But what I like is even these smaller phones with smaller batteries, because iOS is efficient, they last pretty good too. I notice a lot of the smaller Android phones don't really last as long as the smaller iPhones. The bigger ones do. But even the smaller phones can go the distance, so it's pretty great. Now, in terms of audio, I do think they're a king in this department too, and not for the reason you might be thinking. There are phones with extra features, maybe a louder speaker, but iPhones have some of the best sounding speakers when they're cranked all the way up. They don't sound tinny, they don't sound like they don't sound like too bassy. They just sound good. They have like a really clear, crisp tonality to them, nice mids. Nice highs, a little bit. When you get it kind of low, you don't really notice this stuff. But overall, when listening to audio, it's crispy. Also, I find the Bluetooth connectivities on these newer ones, especially, to be very fast and snappy, reliable. That's also good. But yeah, just really strong audio quality at the high volumes. I really love listening to music through these speakers. Now, in terms of king of phone call quality, they were not even in this category a couple of years ago, but now they are. The iPhone has gotten much better phone call quality over time, and nowadays I do think they're at the top game when it comes to reception strength, phone call quality. But there are still phones that have a little bit better in this department. They definitely have caught up in this area. So really strong, I would say, overall. One of the last ones is resale value. You're not beating them here. This one is one of the best. Now, check this out. Let's go buy an iPhone 13 Pro, right? And this is in the US. It could be higher depending on where you're at. This phone came out in 2021, and people are selling this thing for $550. Now, I don't know about you, but that's quite a bit of money for a few-year-old phone. That shows how strong the resale value is. Now, the 13 Pro was an incredible device, but let's take a look at an iPhone 12 Pro Max, for example. People are still able to gather nearly $400 on an iPhone 12 Pro Max, 12 Pros, 360, regular 12s, nearly $300. These phones are 4 years old. So, yeah, these phones hold their value for quite a time. Yes, it's still depreciated. Obviously, it's not anywhere near when you paid $1,000 for it, but 4 years of use and you're still getting 1/4 back or even more. That's not bad. I mean, you used the damn thing for 4 years and you still got $400 on a resale. That is solid if you ask me. And before I get to my conclusion, one point I want to make is that I feel like phones are still trying to outdo things Apple are doing. For example, and while they do have their own unique footing in the market, a lot of Android devices, I just feel like they still chase this company in certain ways. For example, I talked earlier about how the Samsung shape of the current S line, looks very similar to iPhone 15. They have similar materials. They went titanium, just like Apple did with titanium. The Pixel uses the iPhone in their commercials. You have other, companies trying to copy like the overall software animations and stuff with some of their softwares. The ecosystems having Buzz laptops, MacBooks. Apple did this stuff first. They were like the ones leading the market in that area of the ecosystems. If you try to say that like people haven't looked at Apple and tried to like outdo them with some of the things that's been successful for them, I think you're not really paying attention. So in conclusion, is the iPhone still the king of the market in 2024? I would say the sales indicate yes, they are. But are they the best phone? Well, that's subjective to you, what you like, but they're definitely some of the best phones out there. Definitely a king in 2024. From a pure spec standpoint, obviously, I think some Apple devices are being beat by Android devices, but they're still holding on. And I think it's been getting a little bit, maybe a little bit stale lately. But, just when you think it's getting stale and boring, Apple has their iPhone moment, like they did with the 10, like where they changed the game again. So I'm kind of thinking that's going to happen soon, whether it's a foldable form factor phone, whether it's a total redesign, larger, thinner than life bezels, no dynamic islands, just all screen. Something's going to happen because, right when you start to think, okay, then something happens. So I think we're getting to that point. But as of now, still a king in 2024. But I feel like they're barely hanging on at that title. A lot of manufacturers are coming at them strong these days. So let me know your thoughts on the current state of the iPhone in 2024. Do you think it's a king or do you think it's not? Let me know down below in the comments. Let's discuss this. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.